Get on the train before it leaves the station. The truth train is coming, gonna run them down, run them down.
Good evening, ladies and gents. Okay, we're here tonight to talk about Colburn, the cabinet, and the key. Okay, as you guys have heard me many times, you know, Colburn finds the secret entrance to Narnia, right? Yeah, because that's the only way you can explain it, and that's what I'm going to show you here today, as I've shown before, but I'm going to show again today. So, you start off with, you know, the fact that with Colburn, just alone, okay, so there's all the hubbub about him calling in the RAV4 on the 3rd, and whether or not it was in front of him or not. Okay, we have Kevin Ramlow, who has given an affidavit stating that he actually remembers telling Colburn that he saw the RAV4, not at Avery Salvage. Okay. We have Colburn claiming Stephen made statements to him when he went out to Avery Salvage Yard when they first heard about this. There's just Colburn is just there and involved in a lot of different things, right? The finding of the key, you know, he's there. It's, you know, he's a big part of this investigation, but we have nothing from him in Queso. Literally just like a paragraph, or I think, what does Dean describe it? I think is just a little under a half a page in Queso. Yet, I mean, this is the guy who's there when they're finding the key. This is, I mean, it boggles the mind that there's not more reports from him in Queso, right? So there's that aspect of Colburn that's, you know, fishy already. You know, whether or not, you know, he wants to make a big hubbub about whether or not he called in the RAV4 on the 3rd, whether he was looking at it or not. You know, that's to me kind of a secondary issue, because it is quite obvious that what he claims happened in Stephen Avery's bedroom and how they found that key is just pretty much just impossible. It's impossible for it to have happened. I'm gonna go through. There's several reasons why. There's not just the fact that it pops out on the 8th search, but there's other reasons why it should have been noticed previously, you know, and I can't believe, there's just no way I will be able to believe that it could have been missed. It's just, anyway, we'll get into that in a second. But so you got this, you know, all this, you know, basically all this, you know, involvement of Colburn, but no documentation regarding it in pretty much any significant way. So that's interesting, right? So, okay, so then we move on to the cabinet, right? The day that him and Kucharski and Link are there in Stephen's bedroom, it's the 8th search of the bedroom. You know, the whole trailer's been gone through for many, many hours. If you add it all up, it's just been a lot of time. And Stephen's little bedroom, seriously, folks, is a little shoebox. It's a tiny, tiny little thing. I would say it's smaller than my studio. I would say it's even smaller than my studio. It's just a small, tiny, tiny little space. And they had spent, in particular, hours in that bedroom over the 8 searches. That they'd spend at least an hour's, but probably more, worth of time in that bedroom. So it's very, very difficult to believe that the key would have been missed in the cabinet, especially if it was wedged in. If it was wedged in the only way that the key fell, similar to the way it falls in the pictures we see. Okay, when I'm doing my experiment that you're going to see in this video, there's only one way that I wedge that key in that the key falls in any way looking like it does in the photo we see. But if it was wedged in that way, it makes it even more impossible that the key was hidden there in the cabinet, because it would have been so obviously visible that you wouldn't even have needed to empty the bookcase out to see it. It would have been painfully obvious as you were walking in the bedroom door that there was a key there. And so they couldn't have claimed that it was cleverly hidden if it was there. It's, you know, anyways, it's very, it's very interesting. But like I said, I'm going to show you guys. The first thing I want to show you here is I'm going to show you basically what went down with the cabinet prior to this 8th search, so that you know that this cabinet was gone through at least twice before Colburn. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and show you that right now, and we'll come on back. Here you can see a bit of Colburn's claim here, where he says the key to Teresa's vehicle was not discovered laying next to a pair of shoes in the open, but was instead located cleverly hidden behind a bookcase in Stephen Avery's bedroom. So I put that out there because that's his actual statement. That's what he claimed happened. And what you're going to see now makes that utterly ridiculous. All right, so here we have the first picture of the cabinet. You can see there's keys there on the top shelf thing. And this is the way basically it was when they walked in, or within the first couple days. But here we see that there's, now a different configuration of everything in the shelving. And then it goes over to this time where we know, because Colburn told us that he pulled all this stuff out and put it back, and then that's when he tried shaking it. So we know all that stuff's been rearranged. So we know it was gone through at least twice, and that nobody seemed to see anything in there cleverly hidden. I don't know. But anyways, here's just wanting to show you guys how the back of the cabinet was splitting away from the side walls there. It's important. I recreate this condition with the cabinet I bought. I actually do peel the back away and make it just like this. So we'll be seeing that in a minute. All right, so first we're going to start with the only 2 places where this key could have been moderately hidden. And that's basically here on the side wall. And you just saw the picture from the outside where it would have been clearly visible. And if they were emptying out the inside, you would clearly see this piece on the inside, as you can see. So cleverly or not, this key should have been visible. So I don't know what Colburn's getting at with that. But now we're going to move on to, now the key is wedged in the cross shelf, behind the cross shelf in the back panel. And like I said, you still see something there. You see something that catches your eye and makes you go, what is that? Or just, it's going to make you inspect a little bit further. No matter if you look from top or bottom, it doesn't matter. You still see hints of it. So how they could have searched this thing twice and missed this, either if it was in either spot, how? It just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. So this is me getting the cabinet ready here. As you can see, I have the back paneling pulled away a bit there so that it's just like the one in the pictures in Stephen's bedroom. And, that's creating the gap for these keys to be able to slide out or to be wedged in behind the shelving and stuff like that. So here I am getting ready to start the first experiment. I got it on the center shelf, the cross shelf. I'm wiggling the thing around. Oh, it drops. Okay. Now what I'm doing is I'm wedging a little screw in there to keep the opening open a little further, so that there's a bit more of an opening for the key to slide out through, because I'm trying to give it every chance, every opportunity to be able to slide out of there and kind of do like what Colburn said it did. So here I am going multiple tries, and oh, there we go. Like the third try, it comes out, but look where it's at. It's stuck to the baseboard. So here we go with another attempt. Okay, heave. So here we go again. Nothing. Got nothing coming out there. And like I say, you can kind of see how big that gap is. There's a gap there for something to be able to slip out. Here we go again. And there it goes. And look at where the key is. It's pretty much stuck to the baseboard. So, that's 2 times it came out stuck to the baseboard. But here we go again for a third try. Like I said, notice that gap is there. The gap is open. There's room for that key to slip out. But sorry, got a little tired there. Been throwing this cabin around for a while. But anyways, there we go. We're doing it again and again. And this time, all we got was basically the lanyard hanging out. So I'm going to zoom in on it here for you, so you can kind of see that the lanyard's just hanging out of the bottom of it there. And the key is still inside. So now we move on to the key is wedged in the sidewall, and it falls out. And it falls, in that case, on top of the baseboard. In this case, it falls inside of the cabinet. And then again we go, and this time the key falls again inside of the cabinet. So then we move on to the next one, and this time the key does actually fall outside of the cabinet. But the problem is that, like I said, if the key was there in that sidewall, it would have been highly visible from the outside and from the inside. So that's what I'm talking about, folks. The only way this thing was cleverly hidden is if it was hidden in Narnia. If that's maybe, and I've said this before too, if that's maybe where Kucharski's aliens were. They were hanging out in Narnia, and when Colburn started playing Twist and Shout with the cabinet, they tossed the key out from Narnia, and poof, there it was on the floor. Because there's no way it was cleverly hidden in, behind, whatever. There's just no way to hide the key. They should have thought about that. Colburn should have thought about that before he said it. There's just no way. I clearly showed you the two different ways you could have hidden that key and wedged it in a way that it would have been the most hidden from sight. Is, like I said, it's a problem because officers, particularly, investigators, carry around, like I do, because I have to look around in cabinets and dark little spots and little, places and stuff. And so they have one of these. And they use it, And so they would have seen that key if it was wedged in there supposedly cleverly, as Colburn says, but I don't care how clever it is. There's no way it couldn't have hidden there and that it would not have been seen. And that is why I call it Colburn's Narnia Fantasy, because that's pretty much what it is. It's a fantasy. There's no way it was hidden there. And like I said, you saw that the bookcase had been emptied out at least twice before that 8th search. And you're telling me nobody looked in there and saw? I mean, you saw the key can't hide. You would have seen parts of it that would have caught your eye and made you go, what? And investigate further. Okay? There's just no way it could have been hidden like that. And so this is the main reason why I say Colburn is full of it. Because he clearly tries to tell this story, which is so obviously impossible. It's so obviously untrue, as I've just shown you. That how can I have any faith in anything that he says? I can't. And that's just what it comes down to. It's a fantasy. It's an absolute fantasy. And then what do we find out? Beyond this cabinet fantasy, which is obviously fabricated and false, right? Then we have the fact that the key only has Stephen's DNA on it. Supposedly is a key that Teresa's using every day for a long period of time. And yet there's only Stephen's DNA on it. That's bizarre. And it's a particularly high amount of Stephen's DNA. More than they could get from having Stephen hold a key for 15 minutes in his hand, and then they swabbed it and everything. And the amount that he left on that key was much, much less than what they found on the rap key. Sounds similar to the hood latch, which was one of the things I started off this countdown with. Yeah, the key is just so bizarre. So everything about it is, wrong. It just screams out, I am planted. I was planted. I did not start here. Basically, that's what that key says over and over, and it's so obvious, along with all the other things I'm pointing out. You know what I mean? I mean, I've been pointing out a lot of these things and a lot of different things in this countdown here. You know, and when you add all these things together, it's like, yeah, obviously there's no part of this investigation that they were, you know, going by the book. It was all just Cowboy investigating. And it was Cowboy investigating because they were looking for their outcome. That's what becomes very, very obvious with all this stuff, you know. Yeah. Colburn, the fact that Colburn has like very almost no contribution to Queso is a huge problem for me. And for somebody to be so involved and to document so little, you know, and it's like, what about the documentation for what was going on over on Cuss Road on the 7th? Where's the documentation? You know, because there's a lot of activity over there. You know, a lot of vehicles, a lot of various things going on over there. Yeah. Anyway, it's wild, and you know, it's there's reports of apparently Josh Redon saying that he heard DOJ investigators talking about their theory was that the RAV4 had been driven in through the conveyor road, basically into the salvage yard. You know, and I guess in early interviews, he just happened to overhear them, I guess, talking about the case or whatever while they were there to question him or something. And so he was saying that was like their theory, but we have no like reports or paperwork that say that. So that's kind of weird, right? You would think that if he was hearing them say that there would be some early reports showing that to be the case, that's what they thought, right? Yeah. So I don't know. Anyways, it's another one of the odd things, and it's like I say, the fact that Colburn being so involved, and yet there's just a documentation from him is just absent. You know, I can imagine being an officer with a department that had a conflict of interest, that he maybe wasn't trying to advertise his involvement. That maybe that I can understand that he might feel that way, but that doesn't make it right. That doesn't make it okay to not, you know, document your activity. I would think the fact that you have a conflict of interest would make it all the more important for you to document your activity, you know, rather precisely. See, once again, the opposite thing of what should have been done was done. Instead of documenting himself, you know, like, you know, rigorously, he decided, nope, I don't need to document anything. Nobody needs to know I was here. Or, you know, at least I don't need to advertise that I was here. And that's basically kind of like the way it goes, because we have nothing from him. Very little from him. So, yeah, it's pretty wild. Colburn, you know, obviously is bringing his, you know, suit against the filmmakers and Netflix and all that, you know, saying that things were misrepresented, but I don't know. I mean, I don't see it. I mean, he has said and done some things that call him into question, whether he likes it or not. And putting the November 3rd call aside, he has done and said things that bring him into question. I have just shown you with the cabinet and the key, one of the biggest ones that calls him in his honor and his his all that into question. So I honestly don't think his lawsuit's really going to go anywhere. I do find it interesting that in his lawsuit, Michael Griesbach is the lawyer that is representing him. Because back when Michael Griesbach and the other guy, the other district attorney at the time, his name was, crud. His name's escaping me. the other district attorney there in Manitowoc at the time were compiling their report to send to Peg Lautenschlager about Stephen's wrongful conviction from 1985. And it's conspicuous to me that it's Michael Griesbach and Mark Rohrer, there it is. That it's Mike Griesbach and Rohrer who ended up not sending the information about Colburn and the call and the report that he generated, what did he call it? The statement that he generated in 2003, the day after Stephen was released, about a call he received in 1998, right? All that information was left out and not sent along with everything else to Peg Lautenschlager. So when she talks about her breakdown of communication, that's all it was or whatever, and she doesn't even have that information about that call where obviously the breakdown, there was no breakdown of the pathways. There was just a breakdown in Colburn's listening skills, right? And the fact that he generates the statement 5 years later, when the day after Stephen's release from prison, tells us he knew what it was at the time. You know, these are the dishonest things about Andrew Colburn. I know he wants to cry foul, like I can't believe my honor is being questioned, or I've never had my credibility questioned. It's like, dude, I don't really care. You're saying things that are calling your credibility into question. That's hands down. That's what you're doing. Sorry, that's the reality of it. Yeah. So I'm not really impressed with Colburn's crying foul. He, as I've shown you here today, is clearly being dishonest. The Narnia Fantasy doesn't wash. And, yeah. So, I hope you guys have enjoyed this edition of my countdown till Christmas. Talking about Andrew Colburn, the cabinet, and the key. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe. And we'll see ya.